Hello, selamat siang to all. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
So a very good morning to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for your participation in our traditional briefing. Today is a very special day for Russian Foreign Service because on February 10, every year, we are celebrating the Diplomats' Day. And it's the day of professional recognition instituted by an executive order of the President of the Russian Federation on October 31, year 2002. That means already about 20 years we are celebrating this day. And why we have chosen particularly this day is this day commemorates February 10, 1549, and this is the 16th century. The earliest mention in official chronicles of Russia's first state agency for foreign affairs under the Tsar Ivan IV. It was called at that time the Ambassadorial Department, or Посольский приказ in Russian. So our foreign service dates from the 16th century. And today, in the 21st century, the Foreign Ministry of Russia is guided by the concept of foreign policy of the Russian Federation, as endorsed by the President of Russia on November 30, 2016. This concept actually is open to public, and you can get acquainted with it on the website of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In accordance with this program, doctrinal document, Russian foreign policy is aimed at ensuring the country's national security, sovereignty, and territorial integrity, creating favorable conditions for sustainable economic growth, strengthening international peace and stability, enhancing the role of the UN, and developing bilateral and multilateral relations of mutually advantageous and equitable partnership with foreign states. The key principles of Russian foreign policy have remained unchanged. It is independence, openness, predictability, pragmatism, a multi-directional approach, and the upholding of national interests. By tradition, we are planning a series of events for this day. Of course, unfortunately, due to the pandemic, this year they will be reduced in scope, and most of them will be held online. Today, wreaths will be laid and flowers will be laid at the memorial plaques in the Foreign Ministry building for the names of our colleagues who died on the fronts of the Great Patriotic War or World War II, and while performing their professional duties during peacetime, as well as the monuments of prominent Soviet and Russian diplomats at one of the cemeteries in Moscow. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and other diplomats will lay flowers at the monument to Evgeny Primakov, who also was at one point of time the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia and also the Prime Minister of Russia. An exhibit devoted to the activities of deputy foreign ministers who left an important mark in the history of domestic foreign policy and diplomacy will be displayed in the lobby of the ministry's central building. We publish materials on the history of the Russian diplomatic service on our online resources. You can also get acquainted with them on the ministry's website. And on the eve of Diplomats' Day, we're paying our respects to our late colleagues and we remember them. As in previous years, on this day, many Russian ambassadors will give interviews and briefings to the mass media of the countries they are accredited to. This is linked with the current situation. International relations are going through a fairly difficult period. Many new processes have been introduced due to the pandemic, and it's understandable that the profession of diplomat is more in demand in these uneasy circumstances than ever before. So this is one of the issues I wanted to highlight. Of course, the other one is related to the issue of the pandemic, and which of course touches upon everyone in the world. And first of all, I would like to give you the latest facts on the situation with the COVID pandemic in Russia. So as of yesterday, in Russia, we had around 4 million cases, with the newly infected yesterday around 15,000. Around 3,500,000 people has already recovered, and we have registered 77,000 deaths. More than 105 million people have been tested for coronavirus. And the most important thing is that we have already vaccinated around 2 million people. I would also like to note that the situation with the coronavirus infection is getting better, actually, in Russia. We record less people being infected every day. And that's why Russia's government and the government of the regions are lifting some of the restrictions. Of course, the main requirements and the health protocols remain in place, like it is necessary to wear masks and to observe social distancing in public places. But children are going back to schools. University students are going back to universities. Restrictions on the work of restaurants, malls, theaters, and museums are being lifted. I would like to quote some of the words of Deputy Prime Minister of Russian Federation, Tatiana Golikov, who is the head of our task force for the fight against coronavirus. She said that a total of 3,655 stations of vaccination against the coronavirus infection have been organized in Russia. She said that any Russian national can register for vaccination online. By now, some 121,000 people are on a waiting list for vaccination. This actually, we started the mass vaccination of our people in February, and this is a major achievement, and that was stressed by our president. He said on Monday during the meeting of the Council for Science and Education that 3 coronavirus vaccines developed by Russia are a major scientific achievement. According to our president, thanks to its scientists, Russia has leading positions in the world in developing coronavirus vaccines. May I remind you that we were the first country in the world to officially register Sputnik V, the first coronavirus against the vaccine against the coronavirus. Moreover, we're the only country that already has 3 vaccines of its own, which are domestically developed, the president said. Without a doubt, this is a major scientific achievement. The fact that Russia was able to launch the production of the vaccine and start mass vaccination of the population was even more important, Putin went on to say. Thus, thanks to the joint efforts by scientists, domestic companies, and the state, citizens of our country and other countries can take advantage of this greatest scientific achievement, he stressed. Putin noted that Russia also needed an equally fast process of introducing and scaling up technologies, creating competitive products on their basis in other areas that were critical for society and every person. Also, I would like to quote the words of Russian Direct Investment Fund Chief Executive Officer Kirill Dmitriev. RDIF, or the Russian Direct Investment Fund, is the government body mandated to distribute and promote Sputnik V in the country abroad. And he said that Russia is the only country where all those interested in the coronavirus vaccination will have a chance to get inoculated by June. He also said that the focus is definitely on vaccinating Russians. According to him, similar processes in the United States and Europe will be completed in September or October. Also, he noted that RDF is continuing to work to launch new production facilities and provide the vaccine to other countries from the RDF foreign facilities, but the emphasis is definitely on vaccinated Russian people. As you may know, the Lancet Medical Journal, a very old and influential British medical journal or magazine, earlier published the interim results from phase 3 trials of the Sputnik V vaccine. Its effectiveness was reported at 91.8% in volunteers over the age of 60. As many as 98% of volunteers developed antibodies and 100% developed cellular immunity. So I will now give you the main facts about Sputnik V. In an interim analysis of a phase 3 clinical trial, Sputnik V showed strong efficacy and safety result. So the effectiveness of Sputnik V against COVID-19 was reported, as I said, at 91.6%. Analysis included data on 20,000 volunteers who received both the first and second doses of the Sputnik V vaccine or placebo at the final control point of 78 confirmed COVID-19 cases. Efficacy in the elderly group of around 2,000 volunteers over 60 years old was at 91.8 and did not differ statistically from the 1860 age group. So that means that Sputnik V is suitable for people over 60 years old. Sputnik V provides full protection against severe cases of COVID-19. Among the cases analyzed, over 98% of volunteers developed humoral immune response and 100% cellular immune response. Also, Sputnik has excellent safety profile. Most adverse side effects were mild and included flu-like syndromes, injection site reaction, headache, and asthenia. No serious adverse events associated with vaccination was confirmed by independent data monitoring committee. No strong allergies, no anaphylactic shocks. Sputnik V is one of the 3 vaccines in the world with effectiveness over 90%. Furthermore, Sputnik V stands out among these vaccines thanks to a number of key advantages. Based on a platform of human adenoviral vectors, it's proven to be safe over decades of use. It can be easily distributed worldwide. Storage temperature is between 2 and 8 degrees Celsius. And the last but not the least, Sputnik V is one of the most affordable vaccines in the world with a price of less than $10 per shot. So as for now, Sputnik V is already registered in 23 countries. I can name these countries is Russia, Belarus, Argentina, Bolivia, Serbia, Algeria, Palestine, Venezuela, Paraguay, Turkmenistan, Hungary, Arab Emirates, Iran, Republic of Guinea, Tunisia, Armenia, Mexico, Myanmar, Nicaragua, Republika Srpska, and Lebanon, Mongolia, and Pakistan. Mongolia and Pakistan registered Sputnik V yesterday. The first week of February, vaccination with Sputnik V has already started in the following 12 countries: Bolivia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Palestine, Arab Emirates, Paraguay, Hungary, Armenia, Algeria, Bosnia and Serb Republic, Venezuela, and Iran. So that what I wanted, just one more issue that I would like to draw your attention to. It's not related to COVID, but it's a very important event that could influence and is influencing the global strategic situation in right now. On February 3, 2021, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia and the US Embassy in Moscow exchanged diplomatic notes regarding the completion of internal procedures required for the entry into force of the agreement to extend the treaty on measures for the further reduction and limitation of strategic offensive arms of April 8, 2010, the so-called New START. Accordingly, this agreement entered into force on the same days. Thus, the treaty will remain in effect exactly as it had been signed, without any amendments or additions, until February 5, 2026. The telephone conversation between President of Russia Vladimir Putin and the US President Joseph Biden on January 26 became key for this development to proceed. In effect, this core mechanism for maintaining strategic stability is preserved and its further functioning assured on a strictly reciprocal basis, limiting the two countries' nuclear arsenals. Considering the special responsibilities that Russia and the US carry as the world's largest nuclear nations, the decision taken is important as it guarantees a necessary level of predictability and transparency in this area, while strictly maintaining a balance of interests. We expect that the understanding reached with Washington regarding the future of the New START Treaty as a cornerstone of international security would allow to leave behind a trend towards dismantling of arms control and non-proliferation mechanism so prevalent in recent years due to the US destructive policies. Significant steps would be required to return our bilateral dialogue in this area back to a more stable trajectory, reach new substantial results, which would strengthen our national security and global strategic stability. Russia is ready to do its part. We urge the US to apply a similarly responsible approach and to respond to our initiatives in a constructive manner. So that's basically what I wanted to tell you today. And now I see we have quite a number of questions. Let us start by those that you have provided in written. Then if you have more questions, I would be happy to answer them. This is first question is from Natalia from Agence France Presse. I would like to ask about the collaboration between Indonesian Chamber of Commerce, Kadin, with Russia on Sputnik vaccine. Kadin said that they had discussion about the possibility to have Sputnik vaccine for their employee and the family. They also talk to the government about the possibilities to have private vaccination. I want to know the development from the Russia side. Yes, we're aware of this process going on from Kadin has been in contact with the RDF, the Russian Direct Investment Fund. If the government approves the use of vaccines for private companies for their employees and the families, RDF will be ready to supply Sputnik V for this end. On Indonesia Sovereign Wealth Fund, is Russia interested to join in? We have noted the establishment of Indonesia's Sovereign Wealth Fund, especially that it has some similarities what we have in Russia. We are following what is happening around the Indonesian Sovereign Wealth Fund, but we haven't been contacted yet by the Indonesian government, and no talks on this issue has so far taken place. Next question. I'm Enno from National Radio. My question is, will Russia try to approach the regime in Myanmar to discuss about the latest situation and the possibility to encourage Myanmar military to free Suu Kyi and other detainees? We have noted the situation in Myanmar, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has expressed hope that all the issues will be resolved by means of dialogue and in the framework of legal mechanisms and means. So that pretty well describes the position of Russia, and in no way we're going to interfere into the into domestic affairs of a sovereign state. I'm Tommy, hello, from liputan6.com. The question is, so far, government has ordered vaccine from Sinovac, AstraZeneca, Novavax, and Pfizer, but no news about Sputnik V. Is Russia disappointed with this development? And in your view, why Indonesia has not ordered Sputnik despite its affordable price? Well, I can tell you that the portfolio of requests for Sputnik V is very large. I've mentioned that 23 countries so far have registered Sputnik V, and some of them have already started vaccinate their population with Sputnik V. So we cannot say that we're disappointed, and it's the right of every country to get the vaccines from whatever side or company or country that the government deems proper. I just want to reiterate that we are ready when the Indonesian government will be ready to provide Sputnik V. It has been already mentioned that probably it will be done in the framework of providing vaccines for the private companies, for their employees in families. The request to register Sputnik V has been already put forward in Indonesia last year. We're waiting for the result. Good morning, Madam Ambassador. Good morning. I'm Fauzan from Russia Beyond the Headlines. Russia is still closing borders until now due to COVID-19. Is there any info when Russia will open its borders, especially for Indonesian citizens who are actually included in the list of countries that can apply for e-visas to Russia this year, but have been postponed due to the pandemic? Will there be any special requirements that must be met by Indonesian citizens? Well, so far, though the situation is improving in Russia, still we have limitation on arrival of foreign citizens, including Indonesian citizens. I think that the regulations would be changed if there will be a radical improvement of the situation, both in Russia and in Indonesia. It will all depend on the situation with the COVID in our two countries. we really hope for the better, because of course this kind of restrictions are not good for bilateral exchanges. As you know, some regions of Indonesia are extremely popular with Russian tourists. I'm talking about Bali, and of course many Russians miss Bali a lot, so we are hoping for the better, and we hope that with the introduction of the vaccines and the vaccination campaigns, both in Russia and Indonesia, and the situation will improve and our citizens will be able to visit our countries without these restrictions introduced because of the pandemic. Has Russia, in this case, RDF offered Indonesia the Sputnik V vaccine? If so, how's the progress? I think I've already answered this question. We are ready to supply the vaccine to Indonesia. Maybe it could be done through this program for private companies. I'm Alia from Kumparan. We have a question about the Sputnik V vaccine. Will Sputnik vaccine enter Indonesia? Well, I think I've been talking about already. Another question from Natalia. Russia also had plans to build railroads in Kalimantan. Is it still continuing? On Indonesian new capital city, does Russia plan to be involved, especially in infrastructure development? The Indonesian government offers a number of infrastructure to build such as port. Are any Russian companies interested? Yes, Natalia, that is true. Our state-owned company, Russian Railways, had a plan to build railroad in Kalimantan to supply coal. Around $80 million have been invested in the building of the port and to develop this area. Unfortunately, due to some factors, the drop of the price of the coal, now the pandemic, these plans have been abandoned because the plan turned out to be not very viable in the commercial sense. But Russian railroads are still interested in participating in development of railroads in Kalimantan, maybe not this particular part of this road. Also, there are several Russian companies who would be interested in developing infrastructure in Kalimantan, for instance, in energy area, also in probably in how to call the road management, not only in Kalimantan, but any other parts of Indonesia as well. So yes, we hope that when the pandemic will be over and all the travel restrictions will be lifted, we could discuss these plans in a more detailed way. My name is Wella. I would like to hear about Russia's opinion on upcoming Palestinian election this year. Also, does Russia government will support in vaccine Sputnik in Palestine as well? Well, you know that the views on the Palestine issue are quite similar from the Russian side and Indonesian side. We are for a peaceful and fair solution of the Palestinian problem on the basis of a two-state solution. On the support in vaccine Sputnik V, yes, definitely. I think I've mentioned that Sputnik V is already registered in Palestine, and it will be supplied to this country. I don't see any questions. Thank you so much. If you have any more questions live, I would be happy to. Sorry. Yeah, more questions, sorry. Regarding the situation in Myanmar, is there any further dialogue with its government, since Russia and Myanmar military have a good relations? Sorry. Oh, I see more questions, yes. So, sorry. Okay, for Myanmar, I think our position is quite clear. We call both sides, we call for an inclusive dialogue to resolve all the issues inside the country without any pressure from or interference from outside. We indeed, we have good relations with Myanmar, and hopefully the situation will be resolved in a peaceful manner. Alexei okay, yes. I'm Gabriel Yoga from Tempo magazine. About the development in Alexei Navalny case, how do government respond to mass protests in Russia? Well, first of all, I would like to say that Alexei Navalny was trialed and sentenced and imprisoned because he violated the laws of Russian Federation, for instance, for his being on parole and violating the conditions of being on parole. So everything was done in accordance with the laws of the Russian Federation. On the protests in Russia, I wouldn't call them really mass protests. And I think our president gave a very good answer to that. Of course, people have the right to express their opinions. People have the right to protest, but also according to the laws and regulations of the Russian Federation. If the protests and demonstrations were not registered with the authorities and they are illegitimate, and the authorities have the right to prevent these things from happening. Recently, several countries and European Union stated Russian diplomats as persona non grata. How do the Russian government respond to it? Maybe you know that we also, well, that's the right of any country to declare a diplomat of another country as persona non grata, even without giving any explanations to that. We also have named diplomats from 3 countries, if I'm not mistaken, persona non grata. It is Sweden, Poland, and Germany. And the respective ambassadors and or chargé d'affaires were called to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and they were informed about the protests because the diplomats of these countries participated in illegal protests that took place in Moscow and St. Petersburg on the 23rd of January 2021. It was stressed that the actions of these diplomats are not consistent with this diplomatic with their diplomatic status, and basically they represent and they are direct interference of in the domestic affairs of our country. Okay. Lastly, a few days ago, President Putin had a call with Israeli government. Is there any developments regarding the relations? Well, not that I'm aware of. We have good relations with Israel, and our leaders are having conversations on a regular basis, and they are discussing many issues, the Palestinian issue as well, but mainly I think this conversation was dedicated to the fight against coronavirus and the possibility of having a Sputnik V in Israel as well. Is there any dignitaries visit in the near future? You mean from Russia to Indonesia, or from Indonesia to Russia? Well, unfortunately, it's not really possible in the current situation. We are hopeful